welcome back to another edition of Full Court Press. I'm your host, Courtney Mims, and look, we are still talking about Arkansas basketball. Who would have thought now here that we are talking about Arkansas playing in the Sweet 16? This guy did. This guy who's joining me did think we would be here talking about the Razorbacks in the Sweet 16. You know him, you love him. I had Billy Mims joining me on the show. I keep wanting to call you Coach Billy Mims. Right now, you're still figuring out what you're doing there, but hey, maybe an opportunity to go over to UNLV. Maybe Arkansas State just opened up with a head coaching job. You know, we're trying to get Coach Mims back out there. But right now, he's joining me on the show. And Dad, can you explain to everybody why you had Arkansas in your Sweet 16?
Well, because I thought really that if they could get Boogie back, you know, that was a big plus for them. Boogie's been back for the NCAA tournament, and he has been a big plus for them. I also thought Jonas Adu, I mean, he has really stepped up, played extremely well in the first round of the tournament, maybe best game of his life. It was a career performance for him, and he dominated inside against Kansas. I mean, he was a dominant force in that game that really got him off to a good start. And I felt like they were playing good down the stretch. I told you, they won four of their last five SEC regular season games. They were one of the hottest teams in the SEC going into the SEC tournament. And then I said again, it wouldn't be a bad thing for them to lose in the SEC tournament to get that momentum rolling again in the NCAA tournament. And so far I've been right. I didn't see them losing to South Carolina in Columbia down the stretch. Remember, I had them going 5-0. 4-1 is still pretty good. They got revenge on South Carolina in the SEC tournament. They traveled a little bit there in the SEC tournament. Even though they lost out in the SEC tournament, it was a game that could have gone either way to another really, really good SEC team that's playing pretty good in March Madness as well.
Yeah, one that's still dancing as well. So you got to look at it like that. And so I think you're exactly right. You also said they would win a game in the SEC tournament. You got that right. You didn't say they would win the whole thing, but you also said they'd be dancing. And you said they could win a few of their games in March. Well, here we are. They won their first and second round matchups against Kansas and St. John's. And we do have some big news to talk about as well heading into the Sweet 16. Because one thing that we've talked about, Dad, on the show is the depth and the lack of it for Arkansas throughout this season. Well, you talked about Boogie. If he's back, if Boogie is boogieing, they have a good shot to go to the Sweet 16. Well, I've said if this team is 100% healthy, they have a good shot to go to the Final Four. And look, they just got another piece back in Adu Thero, as it was announced today on the Pat McAfee show, of all places, where Coach Cal announcing, hey, Adu Thero is going to be available against Texas Tech this Thursday. And he adds so much to this team, not just a prolific scorer for them, also their leading rebounder as well. He has that size, that presence that you need down low for them. What do you think this means now that you have Thero back for this matchup against Texas Tech?
Well, I think Adu Thero has been Mr. Consistency for the Hogs this year. He's been consistent on offense. He's been consistent on defense. But he just brings a work ethic to the Razorbacks every single night he's on the court. You know, over the long haul of the season, he was the team's leading scorer. He was the team's leading rebounder. He also was one of their leaders in steals, 44 steals on the season, almost 16 points per game, 6 rebounds per game. He's Mr. Consistency. And we talked about depth issues, you and I on this show. You've reiterated to it on your own programming there all the time in Arkansas, talking about, is depth going to be a problem? Well, right now, they're in March Madness. They're still dancing. It takes a 6-0 record to be a national championship. They're 2 down and 4 to go. And they're the healthiest Razorback basketball team that the Arkansas fans, the coaching staff, and the entire NCAA has seen this year. They now have all the pieces of the puzzle back at Cal's disposal. Now, Cal was working on a 3-man rotation, right? He had 3 guys coming off the bench, one guard, one wing, one post. That was his rotation there. Now he's got at least a four. And the way Billy Richmond played the other night, I'd say he might have 10 really good options right now. So the bench has been playing well. So many players have stepped up late in the season for Arkansas. And people say, well, they're stepping up. They're stepping up. I said, no, they're healthy. They're showing now what Coach Cal believed they could always do. Now they're on the big stage, showing what they're capable of. And one more thing in their favor, Courtney, they're feeding off all the doubters. Because remember when they were 0-5 in the SEC and the naysayers and the doubters were, oh, it's rubbish. Uh, Coach Cal's washed up. We don't have a good enough team. We can't do. They're in the Sweet 16. There are only 15 other teams at the highest level of college basketball still playing. And that 0-5 SEC team has left a lot of other SEC teams behind.
And Dad, they're still doubting them. This is a team that I've said what's propelling them in the postseason is that doubt, is those haters, right? Nolan Richardson talked about that with me when I first got on campus. He said, it takes a lot of luck to win a national title, Courtney. You know what else it takes? That underdog mentality, right? Because that's what they felt in 94 when the national pundits on TV were going, the smarter team will win. The smarter team will win. Okay, all right. Well, Arkansas took it personally. They took it personally, and this team is taking this personally, Dad. They saw the reseeding. You know how ESPN does a reseeding of the 16 seeds, or the 16 teams in the Sweet 16? They reseed them. You know where Arkansas was seeded? 16. 16.
I was going to take a wild guess and say 16.
Yeah, 16. They're still doubting them, Dad. And they love that. Trevin Brazil told me, he said, let them doubt us. Let them make us 5.5-point underdogs every single game in this tournament. We love that mentality. So I love that. I love that they're using it to fuel them. But, Dad, a lot of people, and they're the only double-digit seed in the Sweet 16. And I didn't really know this. But, I kind of went back on the stats. How many, 10 seeds? They're the 10 seeds. So how many 10 seeds have made it to the Final Four? One. That's it. It's crazy that 11 seeds have much more luck there. You have like 6 11 seeds who have made it, but 1 10 seed. And so there's a lot against them when you look at the stats, when you look at history and all of that. But this team you kind of feel there's something special with them, right? And can you talk about that underdog mentality and just as a coach's perspective, someone who's been coaching in this sport a whole long time, what does that mean in this tournament? I mean, is that something that they can rest on, not just talent, but that kind of, okay, our backs are against the wall?
Well, I do think it's a great motivational factor for teams. And I know it wasn't too long ago, I was watching one of the tournament games, and they were interviewing a coach, and they said, would you rather be the underdog, with all that motivation, or would you rather be the overall number one seed like Auburn? And he said, trust me, I'd rather be the number one overall seed. Now, I tend to disagree with that a little bit. What that means is, yes, you've had a great season. So that's why that coach said, I'd rather be the number one overall seed. But you've had a great season. But that great season means nothing now. We're in March. This is the tournament. There's 16 great teams playing right now. 16 are still dancing. Anything's possible. Again, looking at every single game. And I love the attitude that those Arkansas players are having, right? I love it. Because you know what? They might be the 16th seed overall in this final Sweet 16. According to what they've done all season, they're not the 16th seed according to what they've done in this dance so far, okay? They've been with some pretty big name coaches. They've been dancing. I mean, come on. So far, Cal has knocked off 2 Hall of Fame coaches. He knocked off Bill Self. He knocked off Rick Pitino, okay? 2 Hall of Fame coaches. No other coach in the Sweet 16 can boast that. Nobody has beaten teams. Look, he's beaten two of the highest seeded teams against him already, right? If you're looking at what everybody else has had to do. A lot of these teams have played a bunny, a gimme, in the first round. Arkansas's had no gimmies, okay? And I love what Coach Nolan Richardson said to you. He's one of my favorites. You know that. I grew up loving the 40 minutes of hell. When I went to coach professional basketball in London, England, I took Nolan Richardson's philosophy with me. We pressed and trapped the entire game in London. We gave British basketball the first glimpse of 40 minutes of hell, Razorback style, and won two back-to-back national championships in 1997 and 1998. So I got to thank Coach Richardson for helping win a couple of championships. But I'm going to add something to what he said, okay? I think it takes three things to win a national championship. Three things to win a national championship. Let's tick them off and see where Arkansas stands. Number one, it takes talent. Talent. Arkansas's got talent. They have the most dynamic freshman point guard in America, and he ain't even starting right now. He's coming off the bench, okay? Because the start five, you got to love Boogie and his attitude. I watched him on the bench in those two NCAA tournament games when he wasn't playing. That was the real key, right? He standing, smiling, cheering on his teammates on the. He basically said, I don't care if I start or not. I don't want to mess up the chemistry, what's going on. Just use however you need me. Cal said he was only going to play a few minutes. He played a little more than a few minutes. And the most important thing, Arkansas Razorback fans need to say, in both of those first two games, when the game was on the line, 4 minutes and under, Boogie Flan was on the court. So they've got talent. They've got a lot of guys. Again, Rose coming back, right? Joe Sadu's playing great. Billy Richmond off the bench, unbelievable performance the other day.
Carter Knox, another freshman, had a great performance.
He playing great, right? DJ Wagner. These guys are all, right now they're stepping their game up to what Coach Cal always saw in them. So number one, talent.
Got it.
They have talent. Number two, you need a little luck. You need a little luck, okay?
Yep, that's what Nolan says. Takes a lot of luck.
Need a little luck. I'm going to steal that one from Nolan, the great Nolan.
Okay.
And number three, talent, luck, health. You got to have your best players available. This is the healthiest Arkansas team we've seen in quite a while.
Probably the whole season, Dad. Probably the whole season. If they have Theo back and healthy, you have Jonas Adu, who said to me in the locker room. I said, Jonas, how much of it was your foot that you were still getting over that? And he said, Courtney, you don't understand. I was dealing with it throughout the entire season. I only just recently feel 100% healthy. Nelly Davis, the same thing. Kid fell off a golf cart, almost broke his wrist, was dealing with that injury throughout the season. He only just halfway through the season started going, oh yeah, I'm feeling much better now. My shot's a lot better. Okay, so this might be, if Adu Thero is 100%, I know Coach Cal said maybe 10, 15 minutes from him, but I'm expecting, he said the same thing about Boogie, and Boogie played a whole lot more than that. So, Coach, you're lying there. I know you are. But this is absolutely, you're 100% right. Those three things, and that's what Arkansas has. That luck part, I'm going to go in that luck part, they got their backs against the wall. And that 0-5 start, there's no other team in the nation. Trevin said this. There's no other team in the nation who have been through exactly what we've been through. So we've dealt with adversity. Some teams are dealing with adversity right now in this part of the season. We've dealt with that. We're essentially playing a little bit on house money, right? We're just kind of going and just having fun. I love this team. I love about it. Let's talk about Texas Tech. the 3 seed of the West region. That's who Arkansas is going to face. And Dad, the storyline of Texas Tech has been this year one guy in JT Toppin. Man, All-American guy, just incredible, averages over 17 points a game for the Red Raiders. He is good. They're going to have to contain him. That is going to be part of the game plan. And so you know that. You know that going in. Coach Cal knows that they're going to have to contain him. How do you do that? That's a loaded question, but how do you do that? Is it by committee, or do you have someone on that team that you go, okay, he can guard him?
Well, I say this. When he's virtually all inside, obviously. He's 6'9", he's 225, he's a tremendous athlete. He's great between the blocks, right? And there's something different about this game for him, though, because when he's between the blocks, he's looking at two twin towers. And the reason I look at Jonas Adu and Trevin Brazil as two twin towers in there, okay, they're not your typical 10 twin towers like Michigan has two 7-footers in there. These guys are more dangerous than the two 7-footers from Michigan, Trevin and Jonas, because of their length and athleticism. They are long. They're like, when they spread their arms out, Courtney, it's like looking at an aircraft carrier waiting for you to land a jet on, right? They are long and athletic, right? That is the kind of post defense that bothers JT Toppin, right? Now, okay, with that said, right, he struggles sometimes against one post defender like that. Arkansas have two post defenders like that. And when they go to the bench, they're bringing off a 7-footer that takes up a lot. Big Z takes up a lot of space too. I think the size, the athleticism, the length of Arkansas's post players, and just the toughness of Thero, right? The size, the strength, the athleticism, the toughness, the length, those things could bother Toppin. And I kind of give Arkansas a little favor in the paint there, saying I believe they might just be a little bit better between the blocks right now than Texas Tech is. What concerns me, right? I'm going to be honest, which Texas Tech team shows up for the Arkansas game, right? Because I think Coach Cal and Arkansas, they play great D. They pride themselves on their defense. I mean, even though in the second half of one of their first two games, they only shot 30% in the second half, they still won the second half because they did a great job defensively, shutting down the other team's offense, shutting down Kansas in the second half, holding a team like that to 28 second half points, I believe it was, something like that. So even when Arkansas's offense is sputtering, their defense, their rebounding, their shot blocking, their rim protection picks them up. Now, Texas Tech is a great defensive team as well, but their offense is sort of multifaceted. Everybody wants to talk about Toppin, but look, they might not have won their first game against UNC Wilmington if all they did was go inside to Toppin. He got a double-double in that game, 12 points, 11 rebounds, but they got 27 points from Kerwin Walton, and Walton was 8 for 19 behind the arc. Let the Arkansas Razorback fans take note here. In that win against UNC Wilmington, which is no Arkansas Razorback, by the way, okay, they're looking at a team in Texas Tech that did get a bunny in the first round, a very low seed, something the Hogs have not had yet, right? You look at that game, Courtney, Texas Tech shot 46 threes in that game. They were 13 of 46 from three. The three-point shot is the only reason they won the game because free throws were about even. Twos were about even. They only beat UNC Wilmington because they put up 46 threes, and Kerwin Walton hit 8 of them, okay? In that game, here's the irony of it. They took 46 threes in that game. They only shot 23 twos. So you're talking about Toppin being the man. They shot twice as many threes in Wilmington as twos. So in the second game, when they played Drake, another very tough opponent for them. But again, I want to say, no Arkansas Razorback.
No.
So far, Texas Tech hasn't gone up against an SEC juggernaut like the Razorbacks. In the second game against Drake, They went to the other style of play.
Well,
They
that's the
were 2
thing.
3, 2 for 14 against Drake, and 13 of 46 against UNC Wilmington. You talk about Jekyll and Hyde. Which Texas Tech is Grant McCaslin going to bring to the party in San Francisco?
But I mean, it creates just a kind of interesting concept for Coach Cal. Obviously, a Hall of Fame coach, he knows what he's doing here. But you're exactly right, because I looked at those two games as well, and I said, "Oh, they can shoot the three." And then I watched that game against Drake, and I went, "Oh, they can't shoot the three." But they still won the game at the end of the day, even with the poor shooting behind the arc. They still won that game. So how do you? I mean, Grant McCaslin really well. You know him. He was, you told me a story just yesterday that we were in Texas at the same time, and he met me as a baby, right?
You were at the fair in Midland, Texas, walking around with Grant McCaslin and his wife and their baby.
There you go. Yes,
I know you don't remember that, but you met Grant McCaslin as well, and he looked down at you and he goes, "Coach, she's the spitting image of her mother, but she talks like you."
Oh, absolutely. I know I talk like you. Everyone on this show says I talk like you. It's crazy, but you're exactly. So you know him well. How do you think, if you're in his shoes, put yourself in his shoes? I mean, knowing what you said, Arkansas's physicality and what they bring to the table, and talented players all up and down the roster. I mean, how do you beat an Arkansas like that, who is stifling on defense, can be a little up and down on offense at times? No one is saying they shot the ball incredibly well against St. John's. What won them the game was defense. You held St. John's to 28% shooting. So if you're him, how do you prepare for that? How does Arkansas on the flip side go, okay, they can do quite a few things on offense. How do you limit them when it comes to kind of both on the flip side? How do you kind of prepare for this?
Well, I think it's, again, I go toward the athletes, the speed, the quickness, the length that Arkansas has. And I think they have a more complete team defensively than Texas Tech does. And I say that because when you look at the two opponents, Drake took away the three. Okay, Drake took away the three, and Texas Tech focused on inside play with Williams and Toppin. Williams had 28, Toppin had 25, and they focused on that. The guy who had 27, Kerwin Walton, and hit 8 threes to salvage a first-round win against UNC Wilmington, he went 0 for 2 from the arc against Drake and scored 0 points against Drake. 27 against UNC Wilmington, 0 against Drake. So I think Arkansas is going to be the best of both worlds defensively. They have the speed and the quickness and the athleticism to run their shooters off the line, to make Texas Tech shooters get tough looks. And again, we're talking Kerwin Walton there, who was 8 for 19 behind the arc. Elijah Hawkins was 3 for 12 behind the arc. But those two guys only shot 4 threes against Drake. I think that's the kind of defense you'll see Arkansas play. They're not going to let those best shooters get wide open looks. But at the same time, while Arkansas's guards can get out and do a great job contesting shots on the perimeter, you got to remember, they still got the size and the length and the athleticism to protect the rim. I think it's going to be a tough. If I'm Grant McCaslin, I am watching. I'm probably not sleeping right now. He's probably not getting any sleep. He's probably watching Arkansas Razorback film 24/7 going, how do I deal with this? Okay. Because Arkansas have all the necessary tools to get past this game to the Elite Eight. They do, Courtney. Now, it's the Sweet 16. Anything can happen. Anything. One team can get hot. One team can go cold. Somebody can get in foul trouble. We saw that. Obviously, we saw a coach in Danny Hurley didn't like the way the officiating went, and he got upset. And now there's a big investigation going on with what was said there. It's the Sweet 16. These are 16 really good basketball teams. And again, you said it from the beginning. Your bracket was almost all chalk. This is kind of a chalk Sweet 16. The only team that really sort of, again, that's why they're ranked 16th right now, Arkansas, because you look at their record and you look at their overall season. But unless you're a Hog fan or a reporter like you or one of their own coaching staff, again, you don't realize the gauntlet they went through, the obstacles that were put in their way, the injuries they've overcome, and the naysayers and the doubters, all of that. This Arkansas team is poised and ready to play Texas Tech. Would not shock me for Arkansas to get it done in fashion and head to the Elite Eight out in San Francisco.
Would not shock me either. Would not shock me either. I think a lot of people, again, Vegas wants to make them once again 5.5-point underdogs. I think the line came out. Once again, they did that against Kansas. They did that against St. John's. They're just kind of giving Arkansas bulletin board material there. So I would be very scared if I was the Texas Tech Red Raiders right now, knowing they have to prepare for an Arkansas team that sounds like is 100% healthy and ready to roll for this one. Dad, something else Texas Tech does really well is they protect they take care of the basketball. They don't have a lot of turnovers, and that's something that they've really excelled in all season long. Well, Arkansas, what they do best, you talk about defensively, getting steals and getting out in transition and getting those buckets in transition. They do that really well. Do you think maybe because Texas Tech hasn't faced a team like Arkansas yet, that Arkansas will be able to capitalize there? Kind of give us your coach's breakdown there. Is that something that Arkansas might feel like they have the upper hand in just because of their athleticism, their talent, and how much of a defensive prowess they have as a team?
Well, I do agree with you there. The key point you hit on there was, and again, not trying to be offensive or anything, but look at the Sweet 16 right now. How many SEC teams are in there still dancing? Like seven.
Like seven. Yeah.
7 SEC teams still dancing. Okay. How many Big 12 teams are still dancing? Okay, not 7. Let's just go there. Okay. The SEC was a beast this year. That's obvious. A record-setting 14 teams into March Madness, and half of those teams are still dancing, right? And Arkansas may have come in, with, people doubting them because of the overall season they had, because of a late season loss maybe at South Carolina. But they are healthy now, healthier than they've been in a while. Maybe, as you said, healthier than they've been all season. Cal did a great job of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. He just hasn't been able to play with all those pieces. I look at Arkansas as a poker hand, right? Cal's been playing Texas Hold'em all season with the Arkansas Razorbacks, right? But this is the first time he's actually been dealt 7 cards, okay? And, it's nice to be able to he's been playing Texas Hold'em all season, but only dealt 3 cards. And everybody else around the table, 7 or 8 cards, and you got 3 cards. It's hard to win that game, right? Can't get a straight or a royal flush when you're only sitting on 3 cards. Okay. Now he's sitting closer to that royal flush and that straight because he's got a solid starting 5 with good chemistry. He's got more depth than he's had all season. And the depth is experience depth because guys coming off the bench have been forced to start and play big minutes. And then you look at the gauntlet of the SEC. Okay. I'll say it again. Just like they say in the ad, it just means more. The SEC is the dominant conference in college sports right now. It is in football. It is in basketball. It probably is in baseball.
No, it is. It is.
It probably is in volleyball. The SEC has got the formula right for success on the gridiron, on the court, on the field. It just means more. And I'm telling you, that gauntlet will help the Arkansas Razorbacks in the next steps they take in this tournament.
Last question for you before I let you go, because we could talk for hours about this team and what they're able to do. There's been a debate on social media right now, and I kind of am like I'm 60-40 on the debate on how I feel about either side of this. There's a lot of national media calling Arkansas a Cinderella team, right? And on a Cinderella run, okay? But there's also a lot of people that said they can't be called a Cinderella team because they were playing in the toughest conference in the entire country. And they're not a Cinderella team if they're an SEC team. They're not a Cinderella team if they have a Hall of Fame coach like John Calipari. You can't call them a Cinderella team. But in your opinion, can you kind of give them a little credit? Maybe they are in this weird year of, what the Sweet 16 looks like and how it is all chalk. They are technically kind of the Cinderella almost of this Sweet 16, right?
Well, when you look at this Sweet 16, what do you see? The 16 teams all come from what we now call the Power Four. They're all Power Four teams in the Sweet 16. There are no mid majors, there are no low majors. Traditionally, technically, the term Cinderella has been used for low to mid major teams that have pulled off the shocking upset, a 16 beating a 1, which had never happened till recently, a 50 beating a 2, a 14 beating a 3. Those were the things. A Wichita State getting to the Final Four. Oh my God, let's talk even more recent. Dusty May and Florida Atlantic University getting to the Final Four.
Yeah, they
Those
were
were
they were the 9 seed that year. 9 seed? Am I crazy? 9 seed?
right,
Yeah.
mid-major, low mid-major, not Power Four conference. So now basketball Sweet 16 kind of looks like football's SEC Invitational, which used to be called the Final Four. The college football playoff. When it was a 4-team playoff, it was really the SEC Invitational. Right? What the Sweet 16 looks like right now, the basketball version of the SEC Invitational. That's what you should be calling it, okay? And I still believe that 3 of the 4 teams in the final will be from the SEC, and I still believe the national champion will be from the SEC. But saying all of that, I do believe you're right. I do believe we can extend Cinderella to the Arkansas Razorbacks. You know why? Because these Hogs have been doubted all year. And when you're doubted, it's like saying Cinderella's mom didn't think she was pretty enough to go to the ball. She wasn't pretty enough. Well, all season, SEC or not, the reporters, the media, the other fans around the country have said Arkansas ain't pretty enough to get there. Well, there's 16 teams dancing, and those Cinderella Hogs are still alive.
See, I'm glad you said that because that's how I felt about it too. I said, I know it's not traditional that they would be called a Cinderella, but man, you got to give them some love. I just, again, if you would have asked me when Arkansas started 0-5 in SEC play, did I think they would get here? I would have said, no. Are you crazy? Absolutely not. And now we're sitting here saying an Elite Eight is not out of the question. A Final Four is not out of the question for this team. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's
You
crazy.
know what? When they were 0-5 in the SEC, the Boo Birds were so loud. Okay. The Boo Birds were so loud across the nation, right? The only people that thought they would make it to this far at that point were probably uh, Ellen Calipari. Okay, she probably thought so. A few mothers of players probably thought so, and the inner circle of this basketball team, the players, the coaching staff, the guys who knew they had what it took. They just had to get healthy and all on the same page. And that takes time. I tell you what's been great to watch this team this year: a first year coach, a first year staff, a lot of first year players all coming together and seeing obstacles put in their way, overcoming those obstacles, never letting the obstacles cause them to doubt who they were and who they could be. I mean, Cal has said it, and I love hearing him. So I'm going to quote Cal right now. He said multiple times, this is the most rewarding and team that he's ever been around, right? And I get that as a coach. I get that because some of those national championship teams he had, those great Kentucky teams he had. Those teams were supposed to be number one in the nation. The pressure was on them to be the best. Never since day one that he arrived in Fayetteville did anybody say, oh, the Arkansas Razorbacks are the number one team in America now because John Calipari just got off the airplane. That's never been the case. It's been an uphill battle all along. He's preached the gospel to his team of culture, the culture of winning, the culture of success, the culture of staying positive and believing in yourself, the culture of overcoming obstacles we face in life. This has been a great life lesson for those guys. No matter how far this journey goes for Cinderella, wherever it ends, it will be the best life lesson journey the Arkansas Razorback current team has ever had. They'll never forget it. And right now, everybody's concerned about how they succeed in March Madness, how they succeed in the NCAA tournament. But all along, I think John Calipari has said this season is going to make these kids succeed in the biggest game of all, the game of life.
I think you're right. I'm going to quote him to end the show here today. They put us in the coffin. They just forgot to put the nails in, okay? That's one of the best quotes he's ever had in history of John Calipari quotes. Put it on the T-shirt. Put it on the banner. I'm here for it. I'm ready. Thanks so much for joining me once again, Dad. I always appreciate having you on the show. And I did tell people, if the Hogs do make it to the Final Four, okay, we are going to do this show live from San Antonio, okay? Live from San Antonio. Coach Mims will be bringing you all the coverage along with me from San Antonio. So fingers crossed, because that would be really awesome if we could get to do that. Right, Dad?
Well, you know what? I'm going to be there with your mother in San Antonio enjoying all the festivities for, I think, my 30th trip to the Final Four. And you know what? Woo pig suey, because I hope that the Hogs and Courtney Mims are there with me and your mom. And I tell you what, not only will we do it, I will get out there right in the middle of all the action, right heart and central there of the Final Four madness, and I will call the Hogs.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. We'll end it on that. Thank you so much for joining me, Dad. I appreciate you. And as always, we'll have another full court press coming very soon.